Can the town of Bodenham unmute so we can hear on Zoom?
Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
So sorry.
Yeah.
All right, if it's working okay, everybody should be seeing the safety review slide. So looking at this study area, there actually were no high crash locations within the study area, which is good news. We review it for a 3-year period, and that 3-year period is when we started the study. So we look back from year 2021 through 2023. And in that 3-year period, there were only 2 reported crashes. There may be more crashes, but those are the ones that were reported to the police department. And then we took a bigger look. We went back 10 years. And we identified 10 crashes. Yes, sir.
Did you look at the types of crashes? Actually, 2 of those crashes between 2014 and 23 were village lots and what is now the Three Robbers Pub.
Yeah.
In front of the building, they hit the building.
Okay. Yeah. So to answer the question, we didn't request crash records. So if it's a high crash location, we can get that pretty available. But if it doesn't qualify as a high crash location, then we don't actually see the crash diagrams. They used to, DOT and the state used to make them more available to us, but they're a little less available now, a little less open. So in that 2-year period, a 3-year period, we had 2 crashes. We went back 10 years. As this gentleman said, there were 10 crashes. 6 of those crashes were right in front of Three Robbers Pub. So at the intersection of Main and River Road. So 6 out of the 10 was right at that location. There were no fatalities or serious injuries in any of those 10 crashes, and there were no reported bicycle or pedestrian related crashes in that 10-year period. So that's all good news. We've done studies like this in other communities. Madawaska was one or 2 pedestrian fatalities in that 10-year period. So I think that's good, but it's also, you know, it's a check that we need to do through this process. We'll be going to the next slide here shortly. Some technical difficulties. I do that. All right, the next 2 slides are repeat slides from our presentation last fall in October. There was a Celebrate Bodenham, I think it's a birthday for the town, occurred in September, and there were surveys conducted there by the town seeking input on this planning study. So this slide is a repeat from our first public meeting, amenities desired by folks that filled out that survey, a dog park, a new pavilion, more parking, mature old trees, community composting piles, decorated sidewalks. In terms of bicycle safety, it was recognized that there needs to be improvements for bikes, particularly on Route 24, pretty much all of the study area in the downtown district. They were in favor of speed bumps or other measures to slow traffic down. And then continuing with feedback on the pedestrian side of the fence, safety improvements. There were numerous recommendations to extend the sidewalk from the village all the way out on Bay Road to Wellington. 3 comments were received. Repainting the crosswalks at the time last fall, road had been repaved, but the crosswalks hadn't. So we actually did a bit of digging with DOT and come to find out it was a town responsibility. And I think all those crosswalks have since been striped. Crosswalks between the 2 parks, and you'll see in our graphics here, we're proposing signature crosswalks there. Crosswalk at Three Robbers Pub. Main Street in the village area needs speed tables and more speed signs. So again, controlling speeds better through here in speed bumps and speed enforcement through your community. All right, so we had a meeting in October, a month after that, the town celebration. And so we were right here and we presented the initial concepts, and these were Not all, but some of the feedback that we had received during that time was, one, they were concerned about truck turning movements at the major intersections. I think there was a demonstration project done prior summer and it really choked up that intersection. And trucks had a hard time navigating that intersection. There was support for extending the 25-mile-per-hour zone all the way to Wallington Road. So up through that section, because right now I think it jumps to maybe 35 through there. And I think cars go faster. There were boat ramp parking concerns. There were concerns with impacts to the bathhouse down at the boat ramp parking area. There were concerns with impacting the parking as well as any winter maintenance associated with Lower Main Street extension. There was pretty well-rounded support for traffic calming, slowing traffic down from the community. We had proposed an all-way stop at the intersection of River Road and Spring and Back Hill Street. And we were also proposing an all-way stop at Main and River. And they were like, probably too many all-way stops here.
Yeah.
Gateway treatments, we had some traffic calming gateway treatments proposed, and there was feedback on where those should be. One was right near the country store and suggestion moving it north past Bridge Road towards Richmond. And then also we had one on Main Street halfway up the hill, and it was like, probably makes more sense to put it up at the top of the hill. It was pretty well-rounded support for pedestrian and bicycle accommodations on the project. Site distance concerns coming down Back Hill Street. There's some shrubbery there that blocks your line of sight in that area. And we had sidewalks going past the country store, spots where really the destination might be the country store. There's a sidewalk that takes you up to Ridge and up to the schools already. So, but we had sidewalks on both sides. We also completed an online survey. This is where North Star Planning helped us out. So that survey was ongoing at the time of the public meeting in October, and we continued another month beyond that, another week beyond that. And so there's a couple of visuals here in the report, and I'll just make note of some of the comments on the left. This is more of a summary, but we have a multi-page report on this. So the village is a desired walkable destination. There was some feedback on the online survey. Desire for more businesses, restaurants, and coffee shops in the village area. The farmers market was the most popular use of Mally's Waterfront Park. But there are other uses and they're very diverse, and it does create some conflicts in that park, whether it's the park itself, whether it's launching boats and parking boat trailers there. People are swimming in this area, people are fishing, and there are pavilion events that happen during the summer there. So a lot of competing interests, maybe better organization for the different uses by making the park a little safer. Yes, sir.
Where was the online survey posted? In the survey, it says that it was available at the town office. And then maybe it was available at Celebrate Bodenham, or maybe they just pulled in those responses. I was curious if vendors at the farmers market also made it available.
Okay.
Do you know
It was posted on the town's website, correct?
Probably in the newsletter, town's newsletter, online.
I don't recall how much, how many people responded to the survey. I thought it was a decent amount.
Well,
We
I
kept
think
it online
looking at
longer.
the data, and this is something that I do professionally, and I was trained in grad school. I'd be surprised if it wasn't advertised at the farmers market, and I'm not saying that's bad. But I think it would skew the responses, and if you want to understand how people use the waterfront park, you need to have a survey that takes place during the high season, and you need to go there and you need to intercept those people and talk to them directly. So I think this was like September 12th through October 21st, and that's not, that's an insufficient survey for understanding the park usage. And so I thought that, you've got two issues. You've got the traffic issue, affects everybody in town who drives. And then you've got a subset of people who use the park. And I think this doesn't pass the straight face test for park users, and an additional outreach process that needs to occur.
I
To
think
get
that
those uses.
the survey isn't connected to the Celebrate Bodenham thing. The survey was posted through the town newsletter in like 50 different places for the town, and then at Celebrate Bodenham, they brought this like little like, hey, do you want to give feedback? So it was not, and I as someone who went to the farmer's market frequently, I don't remember it being like probably put there. I think the most common like people would interact with it was like I think it was a QR code maybe in the town newsletter was the primary place. That's how I remember filling it out. So I think that the framing is a little tricky, but they were two separate things. Like the survey was sent out before the town of Bodenham did its little like, and Celebrate Bodenham will be there in case you want to give more feedback. So just so you know, like it does probably skew a little bit one way or the other, but it's not solely a sample.
Well, I think if you want to get a recreational user access for the waterfront park, you need to go there between May through September, and you need, QR signs are an effective way to do that. Interns, retired people who don't cost a ton. I think that point's still pretty important if you're gonna make dramatic changes to the waterfront, boat parking. You need to talk to those people, observe what the conflicts are. And sorry, I saw your hand.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say, we did not have this survey at the farmers market, but I know we shared this event in the survey on online. So we were liked the town's thing because it intersects with all of these pieces.
Sure.
I know how I feel, but yeah, the early summer boat users perhaps are not on those.
And it couldn't, it's more than just the boat users too. It's like, there are survey methodologies for mixed use waterfront, amenities and.
Yeah,
There are certain ways to go about that, and that's kind of rule number one.
We did have a QR sign right outside of Three Robbers at both sides of the intersection. I think there was even one down at the park. So, it's pretty hard to get over 100 people to take a survey, but kind of period.
Yeah, I guess the point is that it was September 12th through October 21st, so unless it's a really nice Saturday, you're probably not gonna get those.
And it was just another method for us to collect data. I don't believe we're making very hard decisions and final decisions based on that. I think if portions of this study move forward in the next phase, there'll be a lot more input process to it. So it was, and it's all on how you word the questions is how people answer it too. And we know that when we vote, politically vote too, they can gear some of those questions in a manner where you vote the wrong way, not
a
realize.
number of common questions that you would ask for that kind of survey that weren't included.
Yeah,
How many
So,
people were in your party,
it-
what days of the week you use it, how many hours a day you use it, like.
so clearly your background and your education is much more work. We'd love to bring you onto the team as if the project moves forward, but it was a very, it was.
Here, a more
it was-
robust process.
Yeah, it was more of another method to try to gauge input aside from just these types of public. That really was the basis of it, and so we're just sharing what feedback we have on it. Yeah, there's a couple questions back there. We'll answer those two, but then I would like to go through the whole presentation before we open up to Q&A. So Miss,
Further forward than.
I walk when it's nearly every day when it's nice out. I go through the park all the time. You would be astounded at the number of people from away that use the park. They're not on the survey either.
correct.
About his comments. And I think that's really important to keep in mind, that this is a resource, not just for the town, but for everybody.
I think those are great comments. And I think we'll touch on another one of those similar comments on this slide here. So cars were the most common form of transportation, followed by pedestrians and bicycles. Makes sense. But one thing missing from this survey that we saw from the heat maps was the bicycle traffic that maybe used this area. They're not from this town, so they didn't complete the survey. But there is a heavy bicycle use on Route 24 that runs right through the heart of the village. So that stood out to us, and it wasn't captured in that survey, similar to this lady's comments. So speeding vehicles were one of the biggest safety concerns for pedestrians and bicycles. All right, so this slide here, I noticed Yvette, if everybody has a handout, Yvette, I think included, actually it wasn't in the handout, but it was in the email blast that she sent out for folks, inviting them to this workshop or this session, where she kind of summarized what might have changed since the last public meeting for our concept. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I'll highlight it real quick, and we're going to go to the plans and I'll share those. So we revisited the travel lane and shoulder widths on this project. In our first design, we proposed 11-foot lanes and 3-foot shoulders. Following up on that first meeting and working with our study team, we actually revised it to 10-foot lanes and 4-foot shoulders, a little more space for bikes, a little less space for vehicles. In working with our client team, particularly with DOT, these roads are state DOT roads. They were uncomfortable with the narrower shoulders. So we've gone back to the 11-foot lanes and 3-foot shoulders. And creating methods for accommodating our bikes. There was concerns about the boat ramp, its layout and its impacts to the bathhouse, so we've made some tweaks to that. We're avoiding impacting the bathhouse that's there. The intersection with Back Hill, Spring and River, we had a 4-way stop, we've changed that to just a 2-way stop. And then at Main Street and River, where Three Robbers Pub is, we had proposed that as a 4-way stop. We've changed that back to a 2-way stop. But we've added a raised crosswalk right in front of Three Robbers Pub. So that's going to slow, in our opinion, that will equally slow vehicles down in that area. We changed our sidewalk design over near the country store and the gas station. We pulled our second sidewalk back some. We revisited our traffic control on all 3 approaches coming into town, from Main Street, from Bay Road, and from River Road from the north. And you'll see the theme is we're proposing a horizontal gateway, a center median, as our first gateway treatment. And then as you get closer into town, we're proposing vertical, either speed bump, speed table, or a raised crosswalk coming into town on all 3 approaches. So we'll walk through that. We've added some additional signing and flashing beacons for pedestrian safety. We took a look at that intersection with Spring and Back Hill Street and River Road. It's kind of an odd geometry. It's a hard right or hard left. And we took a look at that. How do we make that better for pedestrians? We moved our crosswalk locations. We are proposing a flush concrete median in there to make the footprint feel a little smaller for the regular vehicles. The trucks can still drive over it. So we made some improvements to make it feel a little more village-like. And then on Main Street extension, probably maybe one of the more controversial topics, that's the lower Main Street, where we've come up with 2 different options there to kind of present to you guys tonight. So with that said, we're going to jump into the slides. We're going to kind of walk from the south to the north, Bay Road. So coming from Topsom, coming into town, we'll go right through the village and we'll head out towards Richmond. And then we'll jump onto Main Street, head towards the interstate, and then we'll look at the downtown of the village area with Lower Main Street. The graphics on the screen are similar to what you have on prints here on the chalkboards. So we're basically going to walk from the left to the right. And I think you do have handouts that also show these. So this first slide here is what we call a typical cross sections. It shows how wide is the road, how wide are the shoulders, how wide are sidewalks, what type of curbing are we proposing, and then how much gravel and pavement we put in. Probably the most important element for us on this is understanding from a cost perspective, is the road built? Is there good gravel and pavement on the road today? Is it rebuilt? Our research with Maine DOT tells us that River Road is an unbuilt road. So if we do this project, we're probably going to need to put new gravel and pavement. So it'd be 24 inches of gravel, 6 inches of pavement. Main Street is a built section, so we don't need to rebuild that one quite so much, just the shoulders we rebuild. Yes, sir.
You said River Road was unbuilt, or do you mean Bay Road?
I mean River and Bay, sorry. Route 24 is unbuilt.
Okay.
My question about Route 24, is that going to raise or lower the height of the road?
About the same.
About the same?
About the same. So we're doing top-down views. We don't have survey. We're not engineering these graphics. These are planning studies. So it's just we're laying it out on survey. But the intent here is whatever the profile of the road is going to be about the same. If it moves forward into a design phase, they get survey and they figure that out. Now you're adding sidewalks and maybe curbing on some sides. So you want to, when we get in the village area, you want to make sure that we're blending that in properly to the buildings and doorways and things like that. So you might have to lower the road a little bit or raise it depending on that. But generally speaking,
Right now it's dumping water in our basement.
Okay. Okay. Yep. So if the project moved to a design phase, those would be discussed.
So I want to ask just one thing it's the section between, the 4-way at Three Robbers down to the waterfront. Who is that technically owned by? Is that
The
the butters or is it the town?
Oh,
Is it the state?
it's
Is
not
it
the state. So Lower Main Street.
Lower Main Street, that's town property?
That is a town road.
It's a town road to a certain point. If there's a letter on file, mailed in, Yvette, did you receive a letter? Nicole told me, could that be read, please? Because that's part of the lodge property, some of that. And that's
There's
why,
gotta be, is it a
that's why we're
one?
requesting a survey be made before you start your process.
So we pulled available property line information either from Maine's GIS site or the towns, and we are showing a right of way through there, so it would imply that it would be town owned.
Right away.
Right away,
Yes. The
how
town
far
owns,
to the property line?
well, that would go to the property lines, and basically it would
Our
be
property
pretty
line
close.
goes out
Building
10 or
edge,
12 feet from our sidewalk.
yeah, it's, and I don't know what property you're referring to.
The lodge. No
Okay.
Sonic.
Yeah, so it shows it pretty close to your sidewalk limits is where it shows it. And
I know you wanna get through your slides and stuff.
I do, I'd love to.
Public comment
I'd love
afterwards
to.
and all that, but my point was, I wanted to think about whose property that actually was. How, is that a one rod right away? Is it walking? Is it bicycles? Is it vehicles? It's been used forever. There
Correct.
might be prescriptive easement, there might be other things, but that's a big focus section for a lot of people. So
Okay, understood.
that can cost, you know.
We'll get to it, that as well. Remind me if I don't mention cost.
I'll remind you. don't worry.
All right, so we will continue. We're gonna start on Bay Road on the Topsom side, right? This is the intersection. I don't think you can see my cursor, but on the far left-hand side is the Wallentine Road intersection. So starting at that point, we're proposing a sidewalk entering into town. So there's no sidewalk there until you get closer to the bridge. So we're proposing a sidewalk on the Wallentine side of the road. It will travel down a short distance. We'll have a gateway treatment there with raised center medians to slow traffic down, and we'll have a crosswalk at that location with rapid flashing beacons. Pedestrians can press the button and the flashers turn on. They'll cross the street and there'll be a new sidewalk with curbing coming down on the left-hand side heading towards the bridge. We have had conversations with our design team about should that sidewalk just stay on the right-hand side, because when you get to the bridge, the sidewalk's on the right-hand side. The challenge we're having is those red lines that you see on there, that's our GIS property lines. These lines are showing that we have less space available on the right than we do the left. So we're showing the sidewalk on the left-hand side so we don't impact properties. We're keeping it within inside the state's right away.
Are these considered two rod roads?
It's hard to say, sir, because it varies throughout. It's either 2 or 3 roads.
It shouldn't be hard to figure out. They're
It-
listed.
Correct, but based on the mapping we have, we pull GIS data, and it varies as you go down through. It's not a consistent way.
So does that mean that the lines that are property owners versus the state land is not defined?
It is, sir, but what we're saying is it's not based on any survey. We're pulling this information from available GIS data, which anybody in this room can capture. And it's only as accurate as the information was gained. So we're overlaying this on survey, on aerial photos, which we're grabbing from the same sites.
So apparently we agree, this needs to be surveyed.
Oh, 100%, sir. So this is a planning study. If the community has any interest in moving forward with the project, then those would be part of the next steps, is actually to do design. Collect survey, collect right-of-way information, and start doing design. And the report that we will finish will recommend, as you start doing that design, you need to revisit. If you have more right-of-way space on one side than the other, you might want to move the sidewalk onto the other side.
Okay.
So, okay. And I'm gonna work, go ahead, Ian.
Just to add one thing to be clear about that, if we were to move forward into that kind of.
Could you speak?
Big up. If we were to move forward into that kind of design and preliminary engineering phase, that process also includes a public involvement process. Not obviously anyone who's in a butter that's impacted is engaged, but there are also additional public meetings from that. This is really like Don said, this is just like, is this rough idea something that we want to move forward with? And that's why there's not full survey and all of that. That goes once we've made a decision about whether or not we even want to explore further.
And I think for the sake of moving the project along, let me finish the rest of the presentation before I take any other questions. We're going to continue down Bay Road. The sidewalk is proposed on the left-hand side as you're entering town from the south. It will have curbing and a 5.5-foot sidewalk, paved sidewalk. There is a ditch there today, so it would fill in the ditch. There are utility poles there, so it would be co-located with those utility poles. The poles would either be in front of the sidewalk where the curbing is, or will be in the backside of the sidewalk. That ditch would be replaced with underground drainage. So the drainage that flows from people's homes to the roadside ditch will be collected in catch basins and underground pipes through this area. We are also proposing midway from Wallington to the bridge, a speed hump. So you see it kind of on the left-hand side of our screen.
Stop.
It will be a speed table. It will be a 4-inch rise of pavement. The platform will be 10 feet wide with 6-foot ramps on either side. So it's traversable for all vehicles. If there's concerns about trucks and trailers getting over it, they're designed to accommodate all the vehicles. If you have a super low profile sports car, you might struggle with it. But this is something that DOT installs throughout the state. It's a standard detail. As we continue down towards the village, you see the river crossing and the bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge is there. So prior to the bridge, we will have another raised speed hump. This will be a raised crosswalk here. So, and we'll cross to the same side of which the sidewalk is on the bridge, and we'll continue across the bridge. We are not proposing any work at the bridge. There is a separate DOT project ongoing where they're looking to do some rehab work on the bridge. But it's my understanding the truss structure will stay like it is. All right, as we continue across the river, so now we're entering the park area. So we have the boat ramp facility on the bottom of the screen. We're proposing to better define that and reconstruct that and pave that. It's currently gravel. The little white box in the middle there with some dark gray areas of sidewalks, that is your bathhouse. So we've laid out the parking facility to accommodate the bathhouse. We've shifted the entrance on Route 24. We're going to take questions at the end.
Well, can you just explain why Mirror Point was used as the model?
We used the model we used as a model that we felt would work with the constraints that we had there. So we just don't have physically the space to do a different design that accommodates both passenger vehicle parking as well as boat trailer parking.
But on the website, it said.
I don't get this.
That's the model, just.
It was not. It was not used as the model. This was developed by our team members here, and people questioned the design. And so it didn't take us but 5 minutes of researching some other boat ramps in the immediate area to see the boat trailer parking was very similar to what was proposed here.
Okay, it said that on the website, you probably want to
Understood.
revise that.
So the intersection between the two parks, so there's a park on the upper side that you see in yellow. We coordinated with the town and Pine Tree Engineering, who's coordinating with the contractor. That's under construction. So we've shifted that entrance so they're both aligned, and we'll have crosswalks to connect you to both parks, and that intersection will be a raised intersection. So it'll be that 4-inch raise, so it'll slow traffic down. It'll be like a speed table to slow vehicles down. It will be stop conditions from the park entrances in a non-stop, but have to slow down on Route 24.
Will that accommodate a boat trailer that's pulling out? So
We're
we're
gonna-
keep asking questions, but
Yeah, no,
that's like the primary.
please hold your questions. We're gonna continue across the railroad tracks. The railroad tracks is the white line that you see there. I believe the town and the other communities are looking to put a rail where the trail, put a trail where the rail was. So we're not showing anything on our plans for that, but we're well aware of that project. If that project moves forward, we believe that this project and that project will complement each other. As we continue from the parks heading into the village on Route 24, we're now proposing a multi-use path. So we're proposing 11-foot lanes, 3-foot shoulders, curbing, esplanades, 5-foot space, green space where you can put your utility poles, you can put trees, you can put ornamental street lights. And then we have a sidewalk on the right-hand side, and we have a multi-use path, 10-foot wide multi-use path that will accommodate both pedestrians as well as inexperienced bicyclists. If you're an experienced bicyclist, you're going to use the travel and that 3-foot shoulder. But you're going to have a shared lane symbol. So the people that are experienced, that are coming up from Thompson or wherever they're coming from, if they're an experienced driver, they're going to stay right in the travel lane with the vehicles. We have repetitive traffic calming features here to keep the speeds of vehicles down. If you're inexperienced, you have children on a bicycle, you're going to use that multi-use trail. And then we're going to continue around the corner here where we have Spring Street, we have Back Hill Street, and Route 24 takes a sharp right. So at this intersection, we actually shifted our crosswalk locations to provide them at shorter crossing distances, so they're not directly at the intersection. And then on interior corner, it's wider for the truck movements, but we installed or proposing a flush concrete median on that area. We've seen in other communities like Cumberland, where they install that. So passenger vehicles won't go over the truck apron, but the larger trucks will need to use it on that corner. And then the theme of a multi-use path continues on the left-hand side as you continue north, and a sidewalk on the right. We're gonna talk about Back Hill Street in a few slides. So now we've rotated this. And you've rotated the screen. And so now we continue left to right here. We're heading north on Route 24. We continue the same thing, a multi-use path on the left, a sidewalk on the right. As we get to Three Robbers Pub, we start to run out of available space. So we eliminate that esplanade. We just have the sidewalk between our curb and that building. It gets pretty tight in that area. And then we'll continue down. We have a crosswalk right there at Three Robbers Pub. That will be a raised crosswalk that will help slow vehicles down in that area. And then we'll continue towards the country store. And as we continue towards the country store, you come down, you cross over a little culvert or a stream area. And we're proposing that multi-use trail continue basically to the gas station. And then we would have a raised crosswalk at that location. And at that point, moving forward, there's just a single sidewalk on the country store side that takes you up to Ridge Road that will take you to the school. So there's a sidewalk in that area. So that's a slight change. We were showing more infrastructure in here. We're showing less now. And then another big change is we had a gateway treatment in this area. Everybody felt we ought to move it north of Ridge Road. So this slide here, Ridge Road is on the left-hand side, up and down. And so we're moving that gateway treatment further up, kind of where the tracks come in close, and it's before there's a couple of bridges. So in that area there, you'll see the speed zone changes from 25 to 35, and you've got some gravel shoulders in that area where people turn around.
It already is
That's where we'll put our gateway treatment.
It already is.
So this is, I jumped around, this is Back Hill Street. So on the right-hand side of this graphic is Main Street. On the left-hand side was that Route 24 intersection. So it's one way from the right to the left going down the hill. It's currently one way. We would maintain one way, but we're installing a sidewalk. There is no sidewalk on that street today. We're proposing a sidewalk on the right-hand side as you go down the hill. In addition, at the top of Back Hill Street, we're proposing a raised crosswalk on Main Street. So it shows on the right, and I'll flip the screen here. Back Hill Street is on the upper left here, and Main Street runs left to right on the screen. So basically at that intersection where Back Hill touches Main Street, we're proposing a raised crosswalk there on the town hall side of the intersection. So that is our first treatment, traffic calming treatment on Main Street heading out of town, or last one coming into town. So we're now going to continue going out of Main Street. We go around the corner and we're proposing a speed hump. And you go around the corner heading towards the interstate. And then the third traffic calming item is near Fisher Street and Post Road. That's where our speed zone drops to 25 coming into town from the interstate. So we would put a gateway treatment there. So you have coming in from the interstate, a gateway there, a speed hump before the sharp corner, and then a raised crosswalk at the top of Main Street before you head into the village. All right, so this is the slide that this gentleman was mentioning that everybody is focused on. So this is Lower Main Street. Main Street is on the right-hand side of the slide. You got the four-way intersection with Route 24, and then going to the left towards the river, that is Lower Main Street. Three Robbers Pub is located at the top, and then there's also I'm not sure the facility on the opposite side that has the diagonal parking, the perpendicular parking. The lodge, thank you.
Village Lodge.
Village Lodge, thank you. So this area here, it seems to be a hot topic for the community. It is with the town officials as well. The graphics we've been proposing, I don't want you to think that this is the town officials' agenda. This is our study team's agenda. These are ideas that we have presented, and your town officials may be more aligned with your views of it. So we're presenting some options here. This is not a state road. We believe this is a town road. We believe that if this is not supported by the community, this doesn't have to happen. But these are ideas and visions that our study team has put together, that the community asked us to, town asked us to do this. So we wanted to put some ideas forward. So this is an area that currently is just a pavement area that a lot of people park at to access Three Robbers Pub or the Village Lodge, thank you, sir, or getting access to the waterfront. And there's businesses in this area as well.
Like the
Park.
business.
Food bank or
Yeah,
water.
No parking. So-
Yeah, yeah, so
It's used
this,
a lot.
yeah, so this is we presented two different options. Unfortunately, I will say there's not enough room to define this road as two-way traffic with on-street parking on both sides. There's physically not enough space between the buildings to have two lanes and on-street parking on both sides. So you can do two-lane traffic, but if you want to formalize it, right now it's just pavement with no striping. People do whatever they want. And that might be what the community wants moving forward. We wanted to present some ideas for the community to think about. So with that said, so this was one option. Actually, I want to finish Main Street. We're gonna come back to this slide, I promise. But on the right-hand side from the intersection heading up the hill on Main Street, we're maintaining the on-street parking on the right-hand side going up, but we're also defining 5-foot shoulders for bikes going up that hill. Once you get past that parking area, you do have 5-foot shoulders for bikes, but you don't on the lower end. And we're also providing a sidewalk on both sides where the parking is going up the hill. I think that continues. But on the left side, there is, for the first couple of places, houses, we're providing providing a sidewalk. And we tie in halfway up the hill and we're done. We had a gateway treatment here in our first option. We pushed that out and moved it way out of town. All right, let's go back to Lower Main Street. This is your concept that I just presented to you earlier. This is option one. I'll call this a traditional street layout, which is basically one-way traffic going down towards the river with parking on the right, a curbing and sidewalk on the right. And on the left-hand side, there's not enough space to make like a parking bay in there or a sidewalk or another lane. So we just striped it as just shared space. Cars could park in there if they want. People can walk there if they want. We'll show a visual of what that might look like. Sir, I'm gonna go through my slides, I promise.
Please come back to that.
Yeah, and then here's option number two, where we call it a true shared street. It's a different idea. But we'll get into it. Hard to see here, but the idea of this space is that the whole area is, you don't have to find sidewalk or define parking or define travel lane. It's just an open space with landscaping and benches, so people are
And no
comfortable
car.
walking in and parking there, driving. If they're driving very slow. So we have some street view renderings of these. So this is the first option, traditional street layout. We have a single lane where the bike is showing across, that's your travel lane. So you have one lane inbound, you have parallel parking on the right, you have a sidewalk with curbing beyond that, you have your light poles. And on the left-hand side, you see where the 3 pedestrians are, that's kind of a shared space. Cars park there today, cars can still park there in the future if they want. It's just we're not striping parking stalls for that space. So that would be more the traditional idea. Maybe a step up from what you have today. It really is just formalizing what you have today, but adding a sidewalk, which you don't have today. This is a more drastic view of things. This would be a shared street idea where you don't elevate the sidewalk with curbing. Everything is flush, but you use surface treatments to kind of differentiate things. So you still have, if you look at it, you still have kind of a travel lane. You have places for people to park. And you have places for people to walk, but people can walk in the whole space. They have the right to do whatever they want kind of in that space. So.
But you need to make sure that people who have boat trailers during the season that are going down to the landing are not going through there.
That's not possible.
Correct. So I think under this scenario, we would allow, to answer her question, we would allow one-way traffic, including boat traffic, to come down Lower Main Street to access that area. So that would be, it would be a single one-directional road.
Coming down.
Coming down, not going back up, but coming down.
So like one of the big things is all these sailboats are coming in and out of there and they sit in that mooring field or they get put in there. You have to come up through there to get out of there. It's
Yes.
impossible with the wires.
Okay.
It's like, so that's one of the things that I want to bring up. It's like.
Exactly. This is so important to the vitality of the boat launch and the business and the commerce that brings, is that we have to be able to maintain an easy access to the boat launch.
The boat launch already overflows into the other side of the road into the park when it's just boats and trailers. So when we shorten this up and sneak it down in size, where do we overflow it?
And your concern is power lines, right?
Well, some of it's power lines, yeah, but
Yeah.
don't get me
Some of
wrong,
the bigger boats have trouble with power lines.
yeah.
So is this the public comment period? Can we ask questions?
We're not done yet.
I'm gonna do it sometime.
You did, but you had your time as well, so. So let's just, I think we are close to the end, let's just finish up a couple slides. So that was what we call shared street. Here's a couple another rendering, I think it may be in the handouts or online about different views of them. And we've received comments back, but it doesn't look wide enough to be a travel lane, just, there's, obviously, these are some sketches, these are just some ideas to get the conversation going. And if any of these move forward, there'd be a lot more analysis that went into it. And I think the comment about boat traffic is super important. Because if you have super large boats coming through here, our proposed parking lot's not gonna work for super large boats. So we would need to understand the details of that, and we did not research that as part of this study. The study was more focused on the state roads connections and providing that safe access for vehicles, lower speeds, better for pedestrians. The parks are in our study area, but it wasn't a major focus. Depending on how they come out, you may get DOT to help fund that stuff, you might not, because these aren't necessarily state-owned properties. So we just need to be mindful of that. I think if it serves a transportation purpose, a lot of times you can twist DOT's arm and they say, we'll participate in it, so.
Do we have
All
a
right.
figure on what this study's costing the town?
We do, so.
Did we vote on that to do it, or did we?
So there will be, yeah, the intent is, go ahead.
Our part of this study that we paid for is through the TIF, and transportation studies are part of the TIF. And the TIF is the money that we get from taxes from the CMP and the pipeline corridor.
Okay.
And that every year,
Assigned, so.
yeah, in town meeting, we've now edited the TIF twice, so we've been voting on it for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
It still costs you.
It
I was
all-
like for 20 years in Richmond, yes. The tip costs you money.
So this is our schedule, kind of looking back and looking forward. So we had our first public meeting in October. We had the online survey in October. We've been tweaking this design, as you've seen tonight, working with both clients on this. We've had numerous meetings with them to kind of vet this. So we're coming back to you with these revised concepts, looking for more feedback. Our goal is to hopefully we don't have major design changes, and if we don't, we'd be looking to draft the report next month, April. Tomorrow is April, but the next few months, we'd like to finish up this study. What's left for us is public input on second meeting, draft report, and final report. Where does it go from here? It may go nowhere. If there's not support for the project, it's not going to go any further. But if there is support for all of the project or components of the project, and hopefully we'll get some consensus that there's some things that are good in this study that are worthwhile doing. Maybe some things are just not fully baked yet. We're just not comfortable with it. And I think that's an okay answer too. I think Lower Main Street is a challenge. We've yet to come up with something that I think we have full community support on. And I even think the boat ramp area, the boat parking area.
Some of the sidewalks are controversial too, just because like, where do they go? What are we needing to? I mean, I understand there's a couple people in here that walk from the Valentine Road, but literally, we're gonna build that sidewalk for 3 people.
This gentleman is gonna get after me for answering questions, so, we are through our slides, so.
We're doing it.
So I just have a question. I don't
Go
have
for
a
it, sir.
comment. Could you go back to the boat launch slide, the one that shows the exit on, by the river? The one I guess right before that. There's one that shows the
Yeah, I
exit
know where you're going.
on the bridge side of the.
Right there.
And so there's a raised table right there. In my experience, that's like a safety area. I don't think we need to do any improvements, but it's a little bit narrow. So when you're pulling your boat out, you have to go into the opposite lane, and then usually a pothole forms on the right side at the end of the season. So that's already a pinch point. What does that mean? What's the height on the raised table? And if you have, standard
Yes.
boat,
4-inch height, similar to a raised crosswalk to 4-inch height with a 6-foot ramp to that 4-inch height.
and so how does that relate? So you're gonna have, the trailer as it comes across, front is on one side, the back is on the other side. it doesn't seem compatible. I don't know because I'm not an engineer, but it doesn't really seem compatible with an exit, and that's really the best place to exit.
Okay.
If you can, on the boat. I don't have a big sailboat, so I don't know what that's.
Yeah, and the other thing, just the footprint size, I would comment that if this moved forward in design, there would need to be coordination with the community as to how big of a boat are we bringing in here? Because when we go to our federal standards, it's a typical pickup truck with a standard car-sized boat that could fit in 2 parking stalls. And if you guys are bringing 40-foot, 50-foot boats in here, that's a whole different ballgame.
There's
You can-
several, there's several.
Yeah,
You
that's a
can
whole
go to
different ball.
Google and you can measure the boats.
Yes.
And there are 11, I actually did that because I was so concerned about what this might mean for just my family accessing the water. And there are 3 boats that are greater than 45 feet.
Okay.
So there are.
And I represent Boatingham Community Rowing, where we're constantly throughout the week trailering 32-foot boats. They're long, narrow boats for rowing, but they're very, they're lengthy.
Yeah.
And the only way that we can safely do this whole process is we take them from Upper Main Street down, turn right onto 24, come around to that entrance there, go straight across, turn north on Lower Main Street up to the railroad tracks, and then back down in to either get or remove the boat from the boat launch, and then go straight up the hill. And we have to be able to go straight out. Turning there is not, it's not conceivable. So for longer boats, we have to be able to go the opposite direction from what you guys are proposing. And we do that 6 times a week at least. Putting boats in and out for the community.
Is it ever challenging with people parking on Lower Main Street to get out of there?
No.
They always keep a lane width open for you to get.
There's always a lane.
Single lane, so if you have if you have traffic coming down, that doesn't work, but
That-
somebody moves out of the way.
Sometimes it's tricky,
People use it in both directions.
But it's more, but if people are parked there, there's usually only space for 1 lane, so you've got to scurry around to get them to.
yeah,
But it works.
but it has worked. The only big problem that I have is being able to look around the
Yes,
community lodge to.
yes, there's a site distance issue
Yes.
for sure.
And if that was a 4-way stop,
It solves it,
that would solve that.
correct,
Um,
understood.
That would be that's the one thing that I think would be really.
That would slow people down there quite a bit anyway, if
Yes.
you had to stop. That's not, I don't think.
I still want to ask if you considered that the 90-degree turn there on 24 is a traffic calming feature as well, because it does.
Yeah.
What I see is that traffic both directions does slow down for the 20, for that 90-degree turn. And I don't see the need for speed bumps or crosswalks to slow traffic going into it in either direction.
Okay.
It's,
Unless you live on Back Hill Road.
yeah, I would agree with you there. Back Hill Road is its own issue.
That's the shortcut.
All right, we're gonna go to the lady in the back.
One thing that I would like to throw out as a concept is, I think it would help a lot here. We now have a launch area for non-motorized boats, and the swimmers should be there. The non-motorized boats should be there. This area that they're all talking about should be for the motorized boats only. And I think if we divided that, and we're very stringent about it with signs and getting people to get out of there when they don't have a big boat or a motorized boat, it would help a whole lot in terms of parking, in terms of road widths and whatever. Is we really need signs and stuff to direct the people to where the places they are to go.
Your boat, your 30-foot boats are non-motorized, correct?
They're not motorized, but they're also too long to use the kayak ramp. It's too steep. So we can't. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gentlemen?
I've been very patient. Could you make one move to the left on the screen there? If I'm understanding, I don't want the bridge, I want the lodge in the area. And it's not community lodge, it's village lodge.
Or village.
I'm sorry, lodge. Coming down, where are we at here?
Yep,
That's the
so
lodge, okay, so.
Yeah.
right
up
here.
and down is Route 24, that's your lodge.
Okay, right there where your fingers were.
Yep.
Coming down, that section where we own that parking lot too back there.
Here,
That's not gonna change as far as, except for the sidewalk along the side of the building?
that's the answer. I think you were
I
concerned about.
didn't see it in green, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so to answer your question is, I think you submitted a written comment or a letter. of
And
of
my
concern.
second part was to ask her to read that. You have to
Yeah,
read-
so this whole parcel here is owned by the Village Lodge. There's parking in front,
Right.
drive-in parking, we're trying to maintain those stalls.
Yeah.
And then on the backside, this is all open gravel lot right now.
It's not, we own that,
It's a septic system
Okay,
our parking lot.
okay,
and we lease
So-
it to FHC.
okay. So what we're proposing, we're not changing your gravel parking lot, we're changing your opening. We just don't want it to be all wide open. So for instance, right now, your gravel lot is this, you can access that in this distance. We would like to reduce that opening, whether it's here or here, and put in a sidewalk for it. So basically, just build a sidewalk there, so you don't have, at a specific location, so you don't have this sea of opening to access.
You don't have the road.
your trailer trucks back.
You don't have a road with
That
a
building.
sidewalk there. You reckon you're right up against the building?
We'd be right up against the building, we're very close to the building in that area.
And that's why I'm bringing this up, because Ray is part of our building association. The building agent couldn't be here tonight, but that was one of his questions. I hope they're not gonna reduce where we access that parking.
The
And
opening-
also the parking that we lease to another company.
So the opening we'd like to reduce, but we've worked with you, if you have trucks backing in, we can finagle where that opening is, maybe we have two openings that aren't quite as big, but. We certainly can-
See, and we do back tractor trailers in there, so.
Yep, so
Can't close that up
Yeah.
with the,
So-
no way we're gonna get. a
So right now, the
tractor trailer.
graphs are showing the opening here, this is the bigger building, so if they're backing straight onto
Yeah.
here, that's fine. If they're not, if they're backing into this area, then we want the opening here, but we're showing sidewalk here.
I
Without
thought that's
access.
gonna cause create a problem for them as well.
We can make a note of it, if the project moves forward, work with the property owner on what would work and not work. It's just a sea of openness right now, we'd like to close it up some if we could. Yes, sir.
Question is, you've got a sidewalk on the other side. You've got a crosswalk right there in front. Why do you need a sidewalk on the south side of that road?
We're proposing sidewalks on both sides
Why?
in the village area. Because we want a complete streets accommodation, so we want to accommodate pedestrians on both sides.
I understand that, but to make a left-hand turn with a tractor trailer. We're almost in the building already. Exactly. You're not gonna have room enough.
And then,
There's nothing to walk to there.
No.
Yeah.
can we go back to my second part and ask you that to read that letter? At least our building agent can explain maybe better verbally what I didn't.
On behalf of the members of Village Lodge 26, I'm writing to formally express our concerns regarding the proposed road and sidewalk improvements and their potential impact on our building, land, and parking accessibility. It's a longstanding part of the Bodenham community. Our lodge has served as an important gathering place for both our members and the public, and we want to ensure that these plan changes do not restrict our ability to continue fulfilling that role. Our primary concern is how the proposed improvements may reduce or restrict access to our parking lot and available spaces both on the east and west side of our property. Parking is essential to our lodge's operation, as many of our members and visitors rely on convenient and safe access to our building. Any reduction in parking or limitations on entry and exit could significantly affect our ability to hold meetings, community events, and other functions. We would appreciate the opportunity to review the plans in detail and discuss potential solutions that will allow necessary infrastructure improvements while maintaining our lodge's access. To that end, we request to be included in any discussions.
You didn't ask for the survey too? I told you, I thought it,
They said once,
I thought it was
this is
mandatory.
just a preliminary, once this is done, then they'll have a survey. But somebody stated, I think very well,
It's a sidewalk to nowhere on that side of the road.
If there's no sidewalk there, we would still propose access management there and closing up that entrance. Even without a sidewalk. It's unsafe for users to have such a wide opening,
Unsafe for whom?
for bicyclists that might be driving down the shoulder of that road.
So can I say something that's kind of gonna get into a deeper subject with the town? I mean, I know you're gonna say no, but let me bring up the fact that there are, let's say this, we got the lodge, we've got the pub, we've got the bank, we've got the art center, we've got the music center,
The food bank.
the food bank, we've also got FHC, and then we've got Friends of Merrimack Bay, right? So we got like 8 businesses in there. Now, I'm pretty familiar with the town ordinance, and when you go through the planning board, right, there's performance standards you have to meet, and in those performance standards, interior circulation is a huge thing, and so is parking. Each one of those businesses has to have enough parking to run, right? So we take parking away, we block that off. Where does that put their permit? Because we've already approved them on their existing parking spaces and such.
I would defer to the town.
Right.
You can try.
My attempt to answer that question
Yeah.
might be that as the road is now, there's no formal parking there, besides those perpendicular lots that are in front of the lodge. As it is now, it's a blank asphalt road. There's not technically parking there. It's used for parking, but it's not formalized parking. So I wonder if if there was parking counts used on that road to get permits for the businesses, I'm not sure if that's correct or not, because there's not technically parking there.
It's just something I'm bringing up because I agree, like, it's just a free for all.
Yeah,
So should something be done? Yeah, I can agree with that, but what? I don't know.
The lady in the back, do you still have a question or no?
I think I agree with the question of like, do all these streets need double sidewalks? I hear from a transportation perspective, like there's reasons to like make the access points clearer, but I came to really say like, we need sidewalks. I live on Bay Road. I live on a street that now has 9 children on it. In the stretch from the bridge to Wallentine, and we need a sidewalk.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Richard Joyce, and I get a little background in this. I get a maritime background, and I get a land surveyor for 50 years. And I've done a lot of layout and design work. And what you're presenting here, you've done a lot of detail to do what you're showing. Thank you for that. What I would have done first, before I did any of this, was to survey all the properties, so I know where the property lines were, so that's the one fault I'll find. What we have there now works. And it has worked for a long time. There's some simple improvements you might want to consider. You might want to pave the parking area down through there. And going across the road, you wanna, line things up a little better if you could for access to the additional area and get off there. I see they're putting in a lot of crushed stone that can be laid out and made a little better. You don't need to do much to make this work very well. It is working now. And I see spending tons of money to accomplish little or nothing in the end. And so I would urge everybody just to back way off and do these simple updates and not get deeply involved.
Appreciate your
I think,
comments.
I think traffic calming is gonna be the most important part of this entire process, which is our village has been turned into a flyover, which is, it's just a conduit from other people getting to their jobs or going to other places and cutting through our village. The speed, the rate of speeds, the amount of traffic and the disregard for posted speed limits and the entire layout of the village is just, it's not being paid attention to. And I understand that all of this is meant to create a more friendly, walkable, accessible village. We don't have any businesses in, or very few businesses in. But what we do have is a great waterfront and a great accessibility. However, what scares me the most all the time, regardless of sidewalks and regardless of this and that, is that the roads are degrading and that people are screaming through here at all hours, you know, at all hours during their commute and not paying any attention to the fact that people live here.
Thank you. Miss, can you tell us your name?
Rebecca Pease.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I'd love to second that. I think your abandonment of Lower Main Street and any of the speed tables down there is a bad thing. Especially that's the steepest part of the hill and there's a blind curve at the church. So disappointed to see that you're moving the speed tables up on Main Street and there's nothing to be done on the lower part of the street where all the speed actually happens.
Your name is, sir?
Andy Cooper, 26 Main Street, right in the middle of the action.
All right, yes, sir. Second row, sorry, he's been waiting.
So I'll provide some feedback now, both of the questions earlier, and I think I agree with a lot of what people have said. I think people drive fast in the village, something simple that will slow traffic down, I think would be a benefit to the community. I don't see a problem with the boat launch right now, so I'm kind of wondering like, why are we going through this exercise? I've gone there, most weekends during the summer to kayak. We have a 19-foot aluminum fishing boat. We'll walk on the path that goes along the river, going like southeast, go to the farmer's market occasionally. We'll go to the waterfront concerts if we have enough energy at the end of the weekend. And the conflicts that I've seen are really just like a lack of awareness from people and kind of, you know, I don't think it's malicious, but I think they just don't understand how their actions affect other people. One, it was already mentioned, swimming at the dock. I don't really know what the solution is, and I have no problem with people swimming there, except when the tide's coming out, and I need to come in perpendicular at the boat ramp, and you need to come in pretty hot so that the after boat will swing around to the side of the dock. Otherwise, you'll have a rope from the bow and it's gonna bring you in. So you have to come in quickly. That's a pretty big safety issue. When the farmer's market happens, people will park adjacent to the rocks. And so as you're approaching, coming in from, you know, the bridge side and you come around, if there's a car on the edge of the rocks, you can't, like, if you need to bring the front or the back of your truck around, there's a car there, it makes it hard. It's not safe. I just think people don't understand, you know, that it makes it really hard for the boat ramp. So, you know, some signs or maybe just, you know, people at the farmer's market asking each other to not do that. Maybe put a designated loading zone, but easy solution. And I think the benefit of, oh, and then another one are non-waterfront dependent uses. And so there have been like town sponsored activities where they actually stage in the middle of the parking area on like a busy Saturday or Sunday. One time I had to park across the street as a result, and I was in disbelief. And then the exit by the bridge is a little bit narrow. And so really, one of the benefits of the current plan is flexibility. So if I can't, you know, park in the designated spots adjacent to the bathhouse, I can maybe wedge in somewhere else. I can go across the street, or I can, you know, figure it out. But if you line it and you have, you know, specific spots, if somebody parks in the middle of a line, that's 2 spots that are occupied, you know, by one vehicle. That's really common. You know, you can take up 4 spots with one trailer if you're inconsiderate and have a big boat. And so really like losing the flexibility, I think that's, would make things worse. And I think really, beyond everything else, we should have a plan that tells us the number of parking spots and their dimensions. And with a measurement of the number of spots right now. Parking boat trailer spots, and then the number that would be accommodated with the new plans, and have that be clearly articulated, because that's the metric, how many people. And this is a really important asset for Maine as a state, the state is changing, people are losing access to the waterfront. That is not a Maine type thing, and for Bodenham to do anything that would lessen that heritage, I find really appalling. So I'm not saying we're doing that, but I think that's a really important heritage that we need to think about. So thank you. I know you're just presenting, what you were asked to do. So just wanted to share those concerns. Thank you.
I have another comment from the peanut gallery, if I could. This is Ed Friedman. I chair Friends of Merrimack Bay. I'd like to mention a couple of things that others haven't. I will say, having been here for over 40 years, I think things work pretty well down there, including two-way traffic on the approach. I put boats in there quite a few times over the years. You do want to come outbound when you pull a boat up out of the water, and go up by the, the KFP hall and so forth. We have an office at FHC between the tracks and the building. So I'm a little concerned about access into there, and it's obviously really busy with the food pantry. But lighting, there seems to be a lot of lighting in this plan, and a lot of it's LED lighting. And we want to speak really firmly against that. There's probably 20–25% of people have reactions to LED lighting. It's not good stuff. That reaction might be anything from eye strain to headache to non-epileptic or epileptic seizures. And so it's a health problem. There's petitions into the FDA of 70,000 people calling for the reduction in LEDs. I'm sure people have seen the crazy signs up at the "Don't go this way" by the highway there, and it's kind of hard to read the signs. But that's an example of how crazy it can get. And people have seizures from it. There's probably 3,000 descriptions of problems with the lighting. The other thing is pavement. As I understand it, you plan to pave the parking lot down by the boat launch, and we would be against any more asphalt in proximity to the water. I also think that blocking the parking lot or breaking the parking lot up like this diagram shows is problematic for flow. Again, things seem to work pretty well. Better to have some absorption there for when it rains, and the potholes slow the traffic down. So I think that's most of what I've got to say, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. We're gonna take this lady in the back row.
Lake Raviette, and I was wondering why there's proposed sidewalk on Back Hill, but not over here on Spring Street, which is coming up to this facility.
That's a good question. I'm not sure of the answer. I think,
Because I don't understand why we even need one on
Yeah.
Back Hill.
I think both are beyond the study limits, but I think Main Street, we were looking to kind of look at stuff up to the top of Main Street, to the top of the hill, and that might have been why we decided to make that connection, but if that's not a desire or an interest, I think it was a two-way road at one time, so the pavement width is wide enough for 2 lanes. If the community is not interested in modifying that to provide space for pedestrians with great separation and curbing, that could be dropped out of the project relatively easy. So I'm gonna take this person next.
I have one quick question, which is, in the original plan, actually, and then I'll
build blah blah, I feel like everyone else. In the original plan, there was the four-way stop where the flashing light is now, the all-way stop, and now it's not. What was that change?
So the backstory on that one was, we had proposed it, typically there is, some calculations that you do to justify a four-way stop. There's some analytical analysis that should be done to warrant, it needs to meet a warrant for an all-way stop. We as a firm did not do that calculation because intuitively we thought it made sense to put it here, for a safety benefit. The DOT came back to us and said, if you're gonna do an all-way stop here, you need to do all that analytical analysis. And so when we heard that from the department, that they weren't signed up on an all-way stop there, and we needed to justify analytically, our study team talked about it. We went back to the conversation that was had 2 seasons ago about elevated crosswalk there. The themes very quickly changed to vertical traffic calming in our analysis. In our first concept we presented to you, we had gateway treatments, and then we had some speed intersections, some raised intersections. But I don't think we had any raised crosswalks or any speed humps in the design. So we modified, the theme was, people felt that raised speed tables or raised crosswalks will do a better job of slowing traffic down than other means. And so we chose to replace that. We certainly could go back and do the analytics on it if the
No,
feeling
that
is.
answers my question.
Okay.
And then I'd add, I don't really wanna weigh in on the whole boat launch, Lower Main Street bit, but I will say that I walk around the village all the time, every day. I walked here today, I live on Ridge Road. I would like there to be a sidewalk on that hill, I walk down it all the time. And just in general, I'm hugely in favor of that, for what he's saying, because she mentioned, I walk around with my kid, really walk to school every day, and so any opportunity for, as people have mentioned, the just slowing the traffic down a little bit and making those opportunities, I think is a big benefit. Aside from everything else, I think it's a lot of fun.
Excellent, thank you. The gentleman in the back.
Yeah, thanks. Just picking up on that point about the intersection at Three Robbers there. It doesn't seem like from a boat launch perspective, it makes sense to make that a one-way. It seems like that just necessarily is gonna have to stay a two-way for those boats to get out of there, which is important to preserve. So given that, and given the visibility is so poor around the Village Lodge, it seems like it may make more sense to go back to that four-way stop. Because my biggest concern with little kids living on Main Street, like 35, is just how to get safely across there to the waterfront. That's what I worry
That
about.
was the same.
That's what I worry about the most, so. I like the idea of the raised crosswalks and all that, but I think just safety wise, end of the day, it may make more sense just. Pull the trigger on the four-way there, have crosswalks for people to safely get across, cause. You know, you just cannot see anything going out of there, and if we can't get rid of that, then we just have to make it safe for kids and families.
And before you jump in, I want to clarify something. So DOT was not in support of the all-way stop. They wanted a raised intersection there. So I wanted to clarify that. So
That's why you call it the accidents, right? I mean, there wasn't enough accidents. to
Right,
justify a
exactly.
four-way
So,
stop.
but they were thinking a raised intersection there. We as engineers were uncomfortable with it because the grade drops pretty significantly heading north. And creating a raised intersection there just felt like geometrically it was gonna be a problem vertically. So we weren't comfortable with the raised intersection. We felt better with an all-way stop.
Also water displacement coming down the hill
Yes.
and then across 24.
Yeah, so on the water side of things, everywhere we're showing work, we're gonna have new drainage.
Yeah.
So there'll be new catch basins and pipes underground to collect the drainage. So,
Yeah, my name's Greg. I'm the chef and co-owner of 3 Robbers Pub. We've been there for 6 years now, and there really hasn't been any sort of issues with Lower Main Street the way it is now. My main concern would be for parking for our business. And also during the construction phase, when the road's closed, you know, we'd have no parking, they'd have no parking, the bank would have no parking, all those businesses would have no parking. And then I think putting a four-way stop there would be, there was an accident there this summer because of 2 pickup trucks colliding right there. You know, and then you put a snowplow on the front of your truck, you're halfway out in the street before you can see somebody coming around the lodge.
yeah, and our thoughts of the one-way, we eliminated that, if we had the one-way movement, but it's gonna be two-way traffic there. Definitely a sight distance issue at that intersection coming up Lower Main Street.
Can you do this striping like you had in the first layout, but it's two-way, or does that have to be the yellow?
If we do the striping, you're not gonna have any parking. You're gonna have two travel lanes and no parking.
But I thought you said people could just do whatever they wanted in the day. Right?
Oh, in the diagonal area, yes. So I don't know if we can.
Could that be two-way, well, only one lane, or when you start striping things, do you not?
You would stripe it a little different. I'll explain it to you if we get into the striping. You guys have seen that, I think.
And you did clarify that there's not enough room for 2 lanes and parking on both sides.
Correct.
But that implies that there is room for 2 lanes and parking on one side.
Potentially,
Where we're talking.
Lower Main.
By the lodge.
Yeah.
Once they do the survey, I think you're gonna find that we own out to the edge of the building that FHC has. When you do the survey, you'll find it's in our property maps.
Yeah, so to answer the gentleman's question, if you look at this graphic, you'll see a yellow line on the left and a white line. That's indicating one way going this way. If that wanted to be 2 directional, you could do what you're doing today and just do 2 white lines and it's a single lane. City of Portland asked us to do this one time on one of their town streets with parking on both sides and a single lane. We're not signing up for this because if somebody has a head-on collision, who's going to be at fault for it? But I do believe there is some NACTO standards that might allow something like that. To answer the other gentleman's question about where it is striped on the left here, where the 3 people are, is just chevrons. Can people drive on that? They can, but we could, if we showed that as a dedicated lane, people opening the doors of those businesses are gonna be hitting a car driving by. That's how close. I think that space is like 11 feet or 12 feet. It's not much bigger than what you would have for a travel.
That's the center line of the road, is it not?
It's not, sir. I don't know where the center line is,
It's
but
pretty close.
yeah, we just kind of, we wanted to create, we started on the Three Robbers pub side, put a sidewalk, curbing, put parking stalls, then put I think a 10-foot travel lane in there.
Yeah.
And whatever was left, it wasn't enough space. If we did parking on that side, if they're driving down, they open their doors into the building type of thing. So there really wasn't enough space to dedicate that for parking or a travel lane. So we just chevroned it and say, you do what you want in that space. Pedestrians can walk down there. If somebody's comfortable parking there, go for it. But if somebody's coming up and it's available, you could drive in that space if you wanted to. You just have to be
The
aware.
worst thing that's gonna happen, is on Wednesday afternoons when the food pantry is just full of people. And they don't know, and sometimes they can't come through the dirt lot on the river roadside. And if they can't come down through that side and park in the food pantry lot, they're just going to sort of hang out. And I think that these are issues that need to be looked at, even though that they are on a once a week basis, or with it just needs to be considered.
Your name again? Yes.
Rebecca Pease. I'm
Thank you.
sorry. And,
Thank you, Rebecca.
and I sort of backed off of that, but also during farmers markets, when people want to come down through that area, but can't come back out, or need to compete with trucks, boat trailers, and things like that, it's making it very difficult. But I do know for a fact that the car traffic in that area, in that pod, in between the boat launch, the rail line, and the entry into the food pantry is packed. Every Wednesday, packed. And, maybe we can't do an esplanade instead of making it available to people who need to get to the food pantry.
Thank you. Take the gentleman back, he hasn't asked you.
Okay, my name is Terry Butler, 126 River Road. Is there any plan on extending the sidewalk out 24 past Ridge Road?
Not as part of this study.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for the town, but I think Nicole and Yvette have a desire to do some further out. There seems to be a residential community.
Yes,
further north.
there's a lot of pedestrian and bicycle traffic that uses 24, and there's a pinch point right beside where my house is, where the tracks and the road come together at the bottom of Clay Hill. People come down that hill at ridiculous speeds and go in the opposite direction, going towards Richmond. As soon as they clear Ridge Road, they put their foot on the gas and don't stop until they're at the top of the hill.
So we showed that original slide where our study area was just the village and we expanded it in those directions. We don't plan on going further north than what we've shown, but I have heard in a recent meeting with town that there is a desire to do some safety and speed control improvements up through that area.
Well, we were sent a letter to come.
They were
to
doing a
this
speed
meeting.
study, right? Was there a letter, maybe a request to do a speed study up
We
through
were
there?
given the note that to come to this meeting
Okay.
because we were in that section.
We added people that weren't abutters, direct abutters as well because of exactly what he's saying.
Okay.
Not only that, coming down the hill, they go pretty fast.
Oh, yeah, they don't slow down until they get to the bridge.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got to go pick up a granddaughter from work.
Yes, gentleman in front.
So there's a couple things that I
I wanted
don't
to
mention, so. The development of the park further south, across 24. It's my understanding that the farmer's market will be moving eventually down there. Which would change the use of the space, that we're talking about here. In terms of the boat launch area, and would reduce some of the car parking, at least on the weekends. Is there plans to put more large boat parking on that other side as well? So that. Because like our long trailers, we have to take them, all the way up to Long Branch Road, and we'd like to just put it across the street.
It's closer.
Yeah,
Close, well, Long Branch is closer, yeah. But I know a lot of people that come in with long boats or big boats. It would be nice if they had a place that they could then park those. I will say any design that deletes parking from what is already existing is not gonna be well received. Anything that we can do to increase parking for the businesses that are down there would be nice. I do want to say that, because we've heard things about needing calming traffic, I don't disagree with that. But we also need to understand that Route 24 is a state road. And there is traffic that will be passing through our village as well. And I hate for us to become like a Wiscasset where we bottleneck 24 and make it a road that anyone who drives on it hates to drive on. Because we've overdone the process. Too many speed bumps, crosswalks where there don't need to be crosswalks. I think we need to make sure that we're doing things in moderation as they make sense. And I worry about the design we have in that there's a lot of crosswalks that I don't know if all of them are necessary. We want to cross where it makes sense to cross and where people should be crossing. And I do want to ask with the gateway concept with the median. I've lived in communities where they added a median to a wider road. thinking that it would slow down traffic, and what it ultimately resulted in was a worse plowing situation in the winter for snow. And so it made those areas very tight and very difficult. And there was no place to put the snow for the sidewalks, and it actually made it worse in the winter. And I just want to make sure that we're paying attention to that as we think about these designs. And so.
All very good comments, yeah.
Speaking of sidewalks in the winter and snow, they don't get cleared until the day or two after the snowstorm, the sidewalks that we have now.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna add a ton more, like.
Yeah, we should do it faster.
Yeah.
Wait, in the back.
A comment about the sidewalks we have now. Has anybody realized that the sidewalks we have now have the stone walls holding back a lot of dirt, and those stone walls are in very bad.
That's true.
The one on Center Street is very bad, and the one on Ridge Road going down is bad as well. The one on Center Street is the worst. It's like, I fear as I go past there, whether I'm gonna make it past.
So does our basement wall.
It's just really, really bad there, and so those need to be maintained.
Do we have any other comments? This gentleman in the front.
Yeah.
Right now, from Topsom to Brooklyn Bridge, the 3-year DOT plan is supposed to be putting bike lanes in. And is this design taken into account what's gonna happen? Actually, I think it's supposed to happen next year. So it's gonna happen long before this project ever gets rolling. But they're gonna be widening the road as it is in Topsom all the way to Brooklyn. So is this plan have any of those engineers?
On the download.
Yes.
Yes, so to answer the question, up to the bridge,
Yes.
the answer is yes. We'll have 5-foot shoulders. Where we're putting in the sidewalk, we'll add a 5-foot shoulder for a bike lane. However, beyond the bridge into the village, no, we're not providing, if it's gonna be a bike
The
lane.
current proposal that's gonna happen this next year, that's only gonna be one side, they're gonna be expanded. This hasn't anything to do with your project.
Correct. Well,
To do with this project,
yeah,
but merging the two together.
If, as you described it, if it's a DOT job that's gonna have enough space for bike lanes, they're gonna have to widen both sides of the road. To have enough space for a bike lane without curbing, you need 4 feet of shoulder.
Yeah.
You don't have that today. With curbing, you need 5 feet of shoulder.
But
So-
currently that's on their agenda.
So that would be
in their
great.
Engineering, so.
That's great. if
What,
they're gonna do
what
that.
exactly are they gonna do? Is it part of your?
It's not part of our job at all. This project is, it would need public support, number one, and you can tell from tonight's meeting, that's borderline, right? But this is. This is 2 to 3 years of planning and design work still before you start moving dirt.
Yeah, I
This is
think I'd rather.
And you gotta find funding for this too. We haven't mentioned costs. We did put pricing together for the whole thing. It's about $7 million of construction costs. When you factor in total cost, engineering, inspection, right-of-way costs, you're closer to $9 million. So that's a big number. It was just presented to the clients this morning. Because we just did the analysis just recently, so it's very fresh. So that's the whole thing. Now, if you piecemeal it and decide this is what's important to you, you can kind of work those numbers through. And that assumes we're rebuilding River Road. That's full reconstruction.
That's
So
a
those
big
numbers.
deal in itself.
Yeah, it is.
That's.
It is, and construction costs are not cheap these days. It's very expensive. You, sir.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the better definition of any of the lanes or the parking spots, because it makes it easier for people to do the right thing. Whether, you know, they're coming here every day or they're coming from away, wherever you've never been here, then you know where to go. So I support that, in particular with the new arrangement of the boat parking. That also, I'm thinking that would allow us to have more boat parking because people can park closer when they're pulling straight forward with their trailers. Whereas the current situation where you back in, A lot of people do it great, and then one parks squirrely and you lose like 3 spots. So if it's defined where you're all called through, then we could probably improve parking that way. Thanks.
There were comments made earlier about a before parking survey and an after parking survey. We certainly can do that, but it's a bit challenging when it's a gravel parking lot and it's a free for all how they park. And the street here has no striping, so some could argue there's no legal parking on the street.
We already
so-
have that on the Melee Park plan when we put the launch in. Specifies how many longboat parking spots, how many car parking spots, that's currently on the plan, that's.
On the existing gravel walk?
Yes.
Okay, cool. If you could share that, that'd be great. And we can compare that to what we're showing in the proposed.
And if you go there on Saturday, like, people know how to park generally, you know, there are people that park a little squirrely, but generally like adjacent to the
Rated
boathouse.
the row fill.
Yeah, I mean, the sense I'm getting is there's some things of this plan that are supportive. It doesn't feel like the boat ramp parking area is getting a lot of support. And it doesn't feel like Lower Main Street's getting a lot of support. Like do nothing, keep it as it is, seems to get more support than any of the options we presented tonight.
Four-way stop would be the best
And
thing.
it feels like four-way
That's-
stop is something that would be a benefit, particularly if you maintain two-way traffic on Lower Main Street.
And I think they should, yeah, especially we need to push back on DOTL on that four-way stop because then it just makes sense.
Thank you. One more here.
Sorry, just briefly, if that was a 4-way stop, can that be a 1-way coming out of the boat ramp, or is that not allowed for other reasons?
We didn't approach that, but my sense is, particularly for Three Robbers Pub, there's a benefit of having two-way traffic there. Instead of forcing everybody to come around and drive as an exit up the hill only, so. It certainly could be on the table, but in our early discussions with the town, the thought was a one-way towards the river was the way to go. And that resolved our sight distance issue coming up. I agree with everyone. If we have traffic coming up, there is a sight distance issue, and a good solution is the always start. So.
One last comment on that, if the traffic flow in a one-way situation was coming west versus east, I think that would be safer, especially for the lodge people or 3 hours, people backing out, not seeing what's behind them or what they can see, and then pull up to the stop sign to go. I think that would be better going the other way, going for 295.
Okay. I would assume the business owners that live on there might not be in support of it.
Just say.
Most of the vehicles I see, that whenever I come to this town, that street are always loaded with cars parked, and they're all pointed towards the river. So it seems like they come down the hill and they shoot across and park right there.
Well, not when you're using a boat.
Okay, and that's why I think a do nothing might be the best solution in the short term, where a big boat with a big boat trailer
Any boat.
has to go up.
You come, you pick up your boat, you go to Main Street, you don't try and snake your way through the parking lot, go to the river, you just don't do it. You go.
I mean, I always go out that way. I only have a 19-foot boat, but I just find it easier, and then we can take a leak in the boathouse, my kids, before going home, and it gives you a little bit of time. You know, time.
So you don't go up to Main Street though, you don't go.
I don't come through there with my boat. I avoid it like the plague
Okay.
because there's a lot of cars, a lot of people.
But that's, I think, different than this gentleman in the back, correct? You were talking about going up to Main Street, up to.
Yeah.
So I think he's saying he's coming this way out
Correct.
with his boat, and I'm just saying that I do it differently.
You do it the other way.
Yeah.
It's a matter of choice.
But if your boat's too big, this is your only options come up this road.
Yeah.
It's really hard to turn and go where the boat bathhouse is.
I'm getting boat envy.
All right, any other questions?
32-footer?
Yes, sir.
We've seen a lot of solutions to problems. What is the original problem that we're trying to solve here?
That's a great question. I hate to put Yvette on the spot, but this project was initiated by the town. So this was, I assume,
Just watch Facebook. There's a lot of complaints about speeding around here. There's Facebook.
I don't get that. I don't have it, I don't.
The town has received multiple complaints over the years about speeding and pedestrian safety. And this has come up, Age Friendly and CDAC are, part of spearheading this project as well. We've got the walkable village plan that's been in place since 2010. you know, this is a community that does want to have, you know, a bike path and have their kids being able to get around safely without worrying about crossing the street, you know. It's an ongoing concern that the town continues to hear about, and so this project is to try and tackle some of the problem areas with public input.
So have we addressed the maintenance of this infrastructure? Because we haven't maintained the infrastructure we've got yet. So if we want to build more, how much more are we not going to maintain?
Sorry, Joe.
All right, do we have any other questions?
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for the feedback, so it's only gonna go as far as you guys want it to go, and this feedback is helpful to us. I believe both DOT and the town have been taking notes, so we will collect that information, we'll meet again as a group to figure out, you know, what the next steps are. Like I said, I kind of tip my cap a little bit, it doesn't feel like the boat ramp parking area really should go anywhere. I don't sense a consensus on that, and I'm sure the town will give us input, the DOT will, but Lower Main Street, I don't sense that there's a strong opinion, other than don't change what you got, so.
Start the problem out by the bridge, or you're coming down the hill, or coming across the other bridge, fix that, and then you got, you're all
I
set.
think speed is a big concern.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Speed is.
I know.
Washington passes less on the bridge.
Yeah, and I don't care who you are, if you live here, you know, because you've gone through there and looked down and gone, ooh, you know, it's just like, it happens to everybody, so.
And I will also say that we're particularly on Bay Road, we're changing the speed limit, the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit further out of town. We just physically can't do that unless we create geometry that forces people to drive at slower speeds. So a lot of that traffic calming that you see on this set of plans that wasn't on the first one is to reinforce that, hey, we really feel this should be a 25-mile-per-hour speed zone, and let's make it that way by creating traffic calming features through that.
Maybe the town could request Saginaw to help them control coming down the hill, 25 in it, I think right now.
Yeah.
As I recall.
35 to the bridge.
Top of the hill. Come around the bend, doesn't it go slow down to 25? It should.
All right, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your patience and hopefully we welcome your
When we had the Aurora Borealis, I found that increasing light pollution is not gonna be really ideal either. I'd rather not see that. And so anything we can do to maintain safety, but not have to have more light pollution would be ideal.
Yeah, so to answer the question on lighting, we would, in the village area where we're proposing multi-use path and sidewalks, we would be proposing pedestrian scale lighting. They're not as tall as regular lights. They would be LED lights. I know there was opposition to LED lights. The LED lights with cutout fixtures. So we don't get the light pollution going upward or onto people's properties, it's going downward. Beyond those limits, you still have a sidewalk and bay light. We're not lighting that. It would have to be Cobra lights on utility poles to light that area. So those are some of the things that we would propose, and that's included in that pricing. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
When you come out of that intersection, you got.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
So you can see.
Sorry, but